Hi, this is Hoder Bino from DevilsDigest.com over here with staff writer Jordan Kay at Spartan Stadium in East Lansing, Michigan, where Arizona State wins its first non-conference road game against a ranked opponent since 1997. I was 3 years out of college. You see all this gray hair over here, so you know how long it was. Arizona State wins 10-7. Jordan, in the words of Vince Scully, I don't believe what I just saw.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure that I do either. When ASU gets down, you see Jaden Daniels go onto the field. He's got that 2-minute warning. I think there was a little more. ASU couldn't do anything on offense. There was no real feeling of any confidence, any momentum, anything that would galvanize any hope for anyone to think that Jaden Daniels was going to march this team down the field and score. Not just score a touchdown. Because if he completes one pass, we know how much ASU was benefited by penalties. There's a chance he could have gotten to field goal range. But for him to drive down the field, hit Ayuk on that one pass, scramble around, run around, I think he had a 4th and long to just stay alive, and then ASU to score on that Eno Benjamin. I don't know how you really script that, and I know Rob Likens had a lot of trouble today, mostly with the projection because they were so low on depth when it comes to the offensive line, had to start 2 true freshmen, move a bunch of guys around, that they were calling max protection on it just about every play, and for everything to kind of come down to that last drive and the freshmen to win it is kind of just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the stat sheet, and it's really not a pretty one. Jaden Daniels only with 140 yards passing, was sacked 4 times, like you said, having 2 true freshmen on the line. Ladarius Henderson at left tackle against one of the best defensive lines in all of college football, if not the best ones. I mean, trust me, you're going to see all 4 guys that started for Michigan State today playing on Sundays in the next year or two. And as far as running the ball, I mean, we knew it was going to be an issue for Arizona State coming in. They only have 76 yards rushing. Benjamin only has 38 yards on 11 carries, but scored the lone touchdown for Arizona State, and that's really what mattered. I mean, besides just the obvious issues on the offensive line, Jordan, I mean, what do you think really just plagued the offense, or was really displaying maybe the best defense they're going to see all year long? And this offense, let's face it, the first 2 weeks of the season against the quote-unquote gimme games, cream puff games, didn't do all that well. So maybe it's not a surprise, but what we saw from Arizona State, at least on that side of the ball today.
No, and I think everyone coming into this game got what they expected. We expected Michigan State's defense to just absolutely dominate ASU's offense. And if ASU loses this game, it'd be pretty obvious. Like, yeah, Michigan State's defense was really good. They probably should have won. And when you have a front 7 like that coming at an inexperienced offensive line, Jaden Daniels has no time. And we know you read out Eno Benjamin's stats, and yeah, there's not a lot of rushes in there. They didn't run the ball 1 time in the first quarter, but that was kind of the plan coming in. They tried to run some swing passes, tried some screens, anything to get their playmakers the ball, but at some point, when you don't even have time to do that, you're just scrambling, running for your life, and it's not like an ASU receiver could get open, and even if they could, it seemed like it was only a 5-yard slant or 5-yard out route. So I think it really did just come down to ASU's offensive line was so inexperienced against such a good front 7 that just showed.
Moving to the other side of the ball, let's not try to be like too big about pitting the offense against the defense and who actually won the game, but let's face it, this Arizona State defense is just playing out of its mind right now. In the first 3 games of the year, gave up 7 points in each and every game. Sure, you're probably not going to really get all excited doing that against Kent State and Sacramento State. Against Michigan State, which granted not a prolific team on offense, that's still impressive. I know that Danny Gonzalez, the defensive coordinator, does not like the bend but not break mantra, but when you give up 404 yards and your opponent only has 7 points to show for it, was shut out for the first 2.5 quarters, it really was bend but not break for this ASU defense.
Yeah, I mean, you said it's not a prolific Michigan State offense, but they still put up almost 60 points last week. They still did have a senior quarterback, a freshman running back who had over almost 200 yards last week. Like, this isn't a pushover offense. And for ASU's defense to come out and not only match what they did against Kent State and Sac State, but arguably put together a better all-around performance against better athletes that I think a lot of people thought last week were going to run over ASU. And for them to do that and have such good coverage, actually be able to get pressure from a three-man rush against a senior quarterback in Brian Lewerke, that's impressive. And I know you've talked to some Michigan State people who have said that the Spartans have really had some trouble with ASU's 3-3-5. And I think today we kind of saw what that deception can do to a good offense and an experienced offense. Maybe their line's not the best on the planet, but they have receivers. And Darrell Stewart Jr. coming out of the slot was really torching ASU. Michigan State's tight ends really had a big day. But when it came down to it, yeah, that bend don't break that Danny Gonzalez maybe doesn't love, but it's also ASU buckling down in the red zone and being able to get stops and have a few turnovers. And turnovers, as we know, are just a product of being in the right spots. And I think there was, aside from a few plays, there were very minimal assignment errors, and you could kind of tell.
And maybe this game really also came down just to special teams. The Michigan State kicker misses two field goal attempts, including a one that would tie the game and most likely send it to overtime. Christian Zendejas, the backup kicker for Arizona State, starts his third straight game, started all the games for Arizona State this year. And his 3 points are the difference tonight in a 10-7 win against Arizona State, an improbable victory, and that's probably a gross understatement right now. So, Jordan, let's look ahead to Pac-12 play beginning next week for Arizona State, hosting Colorado, who lost to Air Force earlier today in overtime. I got to think that even though these three victories were not pleasing to the eye at all, that Arizona State is entering Pac-12 play with some kind of momentum and maybe feeling a little better about a very close win because, again, when you barely beat Kent State, barely beat Sacramento State, there's a lot of warning signs come up. Maybe there's not really any shame in actually beating a team like Michigan State by only 3 points and having that confidence going into Pac-12 play. Arizona State may be in a better position than some people think it was.
Yeah, because when you look at ASU's schedule, and the Pac-12 isn't the greatest conference on the planet, you could run down every game and realistically say that Michigan State was better than every team but Oregon, maybe Washington. After what UCF did to Stanford today, that's out of the question. So I think the confidence that they now have is not only that they're better than these next teams that they're playing, but they've already beat a team that's better than these teams that they're playing. That's got to go a long way. And obviously the Colorado game, we know what Laviska Shenault did to ASU and to Chase Lucas last year, but it's going to be at home, and kind of from that point you have Cal on the road, which is seen to be a better team, and then you got your bye week, then Washington State. These aren't like the premier cream of the crop of the Pac-12. Like, there's a chance that ASU somehow gets out of that Washington State game at 6-0 heading into the hardest part of the schedule. I don't necessarily know if that's going to happen because, as we know, ASU trips up on some odd games, especially Friday night, some weird times. But it seems like they're kind of set up in this good position with what could be one of the best wins of their season, the best win on their schedule.
So Arizona State finishes a non-conference part of their schedule undefeated at 3-0, beginning Pac-12 play next week. Stay tuned to all our coverage leading up to Arizona State's Pac-12 opener against the Buffaloes Saturday at 7 p.m. at Sun Devil Stadium. From East Lansing, Michigan, for Jordan Clark, this is Hod Rubino. Have a good night.